Welcome to Rod's Tabletop Hoops. Hello, this is Rod with Tabletop Basketball Board Games. This is a special day, May 18th, 2023. It is the 80th birthday of Jim Mickey, creator of one of the finest tabletop basketball games ever created, known as Fast Break by Mickey Games. I was asked to write an article on the origins and the amazing story of Fast Break in 2021, early in those months of that year. And so I'm going to take a look at that article. It appeared in Sports Sim Magazine, reliving your greatest sports memories, one roll at a time, issue number 6 of July 2021. I'm just going to read a few excerpts from my article that I published. I did do an interview with Jim and Doug Deneau and some other people I got some great information from regarding this game, in addition to my own experience playing Fast Break basketball. I got the game when I was 12 years old. It was roughly October of 1979 when I played the Philadelphia 76ers against the Los Angeles Lakers. And I can't even remember who won the game, but it was a love at first sight basketball game. I learned it right away. The player determination cards were very easy to read. The player cards were just no problem. Everything just flowed. All of the advanced features that were in the game, including just running the fast break or assigning assists or doing little things like that, I had those down within the first game and a half of playing Fast Break basketball. So this is tribute to Jim Mickey. Happy birthday. Happy 80th birthday. I'm just going to go down and take a look at what I wrote back in 2021. Seems like a long time ago. The article was titled "The Game I'll Never Forget, Fast Break by Mickey Games," and it's a tribute, certainly, to a wonderful game. So I'm just going to start off by reading a few paragraphs here. There was a time playing neighborhood sports on asphalt streets and concrete driveway quotes reigned, and when indoor activities included tabletop games like Scrabble, Monopoly, Stratego, Battleship, and Yahtzee. Outdoors, kids played Nerf football, wiffle ball, baseball, suburban driveway basketball games after school and on weekends, getting a wealth of exercise while emulating the style and moves of their favorite sports heroes. Indoors, the National Football League, Major League Baseball, and National Basketball Association stars and teams were on display on the big three networks, CBS, NBC, and ABC, but national sports coverage was typically limited to 1 or 2 games per week during football, baseball, and basketball seasons. For the statistically driven sports fan, let me see here, I've got to get my... Young or old, reliving these sporting events was simulated within tabletop board games. An advertisement for the APA Pro basketball game once exclaimed, quote, "Now you can coach top pro stars yourself with the APA Pro basketball game." Similar ads ran for APA's professional football and baseball board games. Jim Mickey always had a passion for tabletop sports games. He frequently played card and dice games during the 1950s and 1960s. Outfits like APA of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and Stratomatic of Glen Head, New York, had wonderful baseball and football incarnations of tabletop sports games that provided Mickey countless hours of statistically driven gameplay and fun for many years. However, by the late 1960s, Mickey was still yearning for a good tabletop basketball game to satisfy his appetite for a sport he loved during the winter months. Mickey once tried out the APA Pro basketball game. I asked him what he thought about the game. "I think it takes forever. It was laborious," said Mickey from his Rochelle, Illinois home, where he has resided since 1971. Mickey's answer to the APA question was spot on. The APA Pro basketball game has individual player cards and a game board, with the basketball court broken down into sections. Game players coach their own teams and provided with the option to have the carded representations of NBA players pass, dribble, or shoot from one of multiple sections on the court and do so on every possession. In some cases, it took minutes to complete one possession of the game. Fans of APA's baseball, football, hockey, horse racing, and golf games struggled to withstand the monotony of APA's basketball entry into the sports simulation world. And that was around 1965 or 66. In fact, when APA basketball is broached within tabletop basketball discussions and blogs over the internet today, veteran game players often say they never finished a complete game of the APA Pro basketball game because it took too darn long to play. Mickey, then employed as an accountant and CFO for O Cedar, the nationally renowned mop and broom company with this jingle, O Cedar makes your life easier, was stupefied there were no tabletop basketball games to his liking. In turn, he decided to do something about it by putting his wits and mathematical mind to work. He spent hours thinking and experimenting with cards and dice-activated gaming engines and player card designs that he hoped would evolve into a fun and free-flowing tabletop basketball game. Mickey worked on his basketball project during seasons when football and baseball were not being played, but resumed his pigskin and hardball hobbies when those seasons returned. Basketball games were not too good, Mickey said. I figured I could do as well as these guys. I started fooling around with the game design a little bit. I'd come back to what I'd worked on from the previous year. Following additional years of experimentation, Mickey finally felt it was time to give his cards and dice-based prototype a shot. I had worked on my game for several years. When I reached the stage in about 1972, I said to myself, either you're going to publish it now or drop it. I went ahead and started advertising a little bit and published it. Fast Break by Mickey Games was born. The heading, What's in the Plain Brown Box? Components of Fast Break. First-time purchasers of Fast Break by Mickey Games were warned in a multifold yellow game brochure that Fast Break comes in a sturdy but plain brown box as we put our emphasis on the quality of the game inside, not in fancy boxes. Years of game experimentation by Mickey resulted in the game's invention and creation. Here are the nuts and bolts of the Fast Break Pro basketball game. Individual player cards. Jim Mickey's handcrafted player cards are broken down into separate offensive and defensive cards. Mickey evened the playing court for starters and reserves by calculating each player's statistics on a per 48 minutes basis. From field goal and free throw attempts to offensive and defensive rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, shots, turnovers, and personal fouls, this was just the first step in generating individual offensive and defensive cards. Every season, Mickey took a quantum of per 48 minute statistics and translated them into individual player cards with multiple columns. During the early years of Fast Break, Mickey produced these statistical creations by hand with a calculator. It was a time-consuming task. In 1978, Jim Mickey met Doug Deneau of Oregon, Illinois. Deneau's computer skills were eventually employed to facilitate the yearly statistical analyses required for the development of Fast Break's game cards, per 48 minute statistics, and triggerman summaries. Offensive cards. Looking at the Isaiah Thomas offensive card, you'll notice the free throw column is popular with G and blank spaces, reflecting good and missed free throw tries. The 3-point column is populated successfully with made three fields and missed shots on blank spaces. If a 2 is rolled, there is a re-roll. If you roll 2 to 4 on the re-roll, the 3-point shot is good. As you can see on Isaiah Thomas's card right there. The offensive cards get more intricate and pleasantly unique following the free throw and 3-point column entries. The RG and P portions of the offensive card refer to run and gun and pattern play offensive actions on each individual offensive card. The RG serves a dual purpose in Fast Break. The column is used when a player receives a fast break opportunity to score, a signature feature in Fast Break. And as a putback column during the designated offensive rebound situations. The P column comes into play quite often in Fast Break as a team sets up its offense. Good offensive players not only find ways to score via basket entries and draw fouls via foul 2 or foul 1 or even basket and foul entries, but are often finding other players on the court with the brilliant pass referred to as an assist, which awards a random teammate on the court with an instant 2 points. Now, I'll cut away for a second here. The Stratomatic game had a dazzler right around the same time Jim Mickey came up with his assist. I just wonder which product came first, because to have that assist or dazzler really gives the point guard or a great ball handler or a great passing forward like a Rick Barry the ability to create offense, not just stand around and not be able to contribute to an offensive play. And that was just revolutionary. So whoever created that, it really, really makes the game work. Hoops Tabletop Pro Basketball, which is being published today by Mark Vaselio, uses the assist pretty religiously, and some players have amazing assist columns, the guys like John Stockton and the like. Of course, NBA players are not perfect. Some of the best playmakers and scorers are prone to making turnovers, including traveling violations, bad passes, or having the ball stolen from them. Other players are hesitant to shoot and have to contribute in other ways to make up for their lack of offensive prowess. Some carded players are just flat out abysmal on offense or defense, as they are in real life NBA. From superstars to streaky players to scrubs, Mickey created and rated them all in Fast Break. This refers to defensive cards. My favorite part of Fast Break. Fast Break's defensive cards are like no others ever found in tabletop basketball game. Players are rated not only for steals and block shots, first tabulated by the NBA 1973-74 and in time for the first ever edition of Fast Break, but are rated for forced turnovers and forced missed shots. Following the creation of a defensive card, Mickey awarded each player an overall defensive rating. The gamut of defensive ratings ranges from very poor to fair, to average to above average, to good, to very good, or to excellent. Fun fact, Fast Break's defensive player cards were often awarded hybrid ratings, such as average to fair to poor, average above average to good to above average. Discussions about whether above average to good is better than a good to above average were common among Fast Break aficionados. Swingman. Players who play two different positions are rated defensively at each position. This innovation allowed for individual offensive and defensive matchups on the game board. For instance, when replaying the 1984 NBA Finals matchup between the Lakers and the Celtics, there were times when the Lakers' Michael Cooper would be asked to defend the Celtics guard Dennis Johnson and forward Larry Bird during the same game. Cooper, a perennial NBA All-Defensive Team member, was awarded the top defensive rating of excellent at both positions by Mickey. By simply flipping his defensive card 180 degrees, Cooper shifts from guard and into forward mode and can guard Bird or whoever's playing at small forward for the Celtics at the time. And as you can see, there's Cooper's card right there. Fun fact, defensive ratings of excellent are reserved for elite defenders in Fast Break. Cooper's rating of excellent at two positions in 1983-84 is unique. He was previously rated excellent at both slots for the Lakers in 1980-81 and is the only player to have two-position excellence during the entire run of Fast Break by Mickey games. Mickey put a lot of time and research into the individual offensive tendencies and defensive player ratings of his handcrafted player cards. I watched a lot of NBA basketball when I was putting it together. I just tried to reproduce the NBA game as I saw it on TV, Mickey said. Due to the lack of an array of NBA games on national television during the 1970s and before the age of cable television and the emergence of networks like ESPN, Mickey reached for outside help with the scouting of the league's teams. Jim would study teams and consult with his network of contacts all around the country. Watching countless games and taking detailed notes on each game throughout the NBA season, Danow said. He would study who ran the offenses, who played outside, inside versus outside, who guarded whom, especially during key parts of the game, as better defensive players could be identified as to whom they covered during those critical moments, Danow continued. He always knew who the stud defenders were on teams as they stepped up toward the end of the games by switching on the strongest offensive players. As in the real NBA, the best defensive players were not always the league leaders in block shots or steals. Mickey's individual defensive ratings reflected a player's ability beyond raw statistics. Some players were really good defensive players, said Mickey. They might not have blocked many shots or stolen the ball much, but were good position players, keeping between the ball and the shooter. Some guy who stole the ball a lot, that meant they were gambling. Team fast break cards. The pace of gameplay is among Mickey's greatest successes with the invention of fast break. Each NBA team's ability to periodically run and gun is initiated by a defensive rebound off a missed shot, a defensive rebound off a block shot, or a steal, and an ensuing fast break opportunity, or FBO. A reference to the fast breaking team's fast break card follows all of these scenarios. Fast break's team fast break cards are divided into 3 fast break lanes: left lane, middle lane, and right lane, designed for high-scoring players like Denver's Kiki Vandeweghe to fill with regularity. Die-hard NBA fans know that Doug Moe's Denver Nuggets of the 1980s were assembled with running and gunning in mind, and the team fast break cards created for those teams reflect teams capable of scoring 115 to 130 points per game. You had to get the game to flow back and forth from one end of the court to the other end of the court, Mickey. Certain teams, like the Denver Nuggets, ran the fast break a lot. By contrast, teams like Mike Fratello's Atlanta Hawks of the early 1980s employed more of a plodding offensive strategy, either by design or based on the physical capabilities of the players on the roster. In this case, left, middle, and right lanes were filled with multiple no-outlet pass and held-up entries, limiting the team's ability to cash in on the break. Player determination cards. Individual player and team fast break cards don't function without the fast break game engine known as player determination cards. The top half of the original yellow deck of 48 cards, or 96 within a typical double deck, determines player possession and whether the play results of the possession are read from the individual offensive or defensive player cards. The player determination cards are also employed for rebound battles, and these battles are indicated on the lower half of the card. Results could be as simple as a rebound battle between opposing centers, rebound battles between players at different positions, or other rebound results like loose ball fouls, tip chart opportunities for tip-in baskets, and more, automatic offensive or defensive rebounds, or defensive rebounds that initiate a fast break. The Triggerman, Playmaker, and alternate Triggerman summaries are a component of these player determination cards. Adjacent to the team-by-team per 48-minute statistics sheets provided within the plain brown box are quarter-by-quarter Triggerman summaries for each team created in Fast Break. What's a Triggerman? With each turn of a player determination card, cards with Triggerman, alternate Triggerman, or Playmaker periodically come up and tip the scales, so to speak. Instead of equally distributing the ball to all 5 players within the offensive lineup throughout a 48-minute game, Triggerman readings put the ball in the hands of top scorers or top playmakers on each team. Note, the term Playmaker was utilized within the Triggerman summaries during the first 5 seasons of Fast Break. The yellow deck of player determination cards was revised in '79, and the Playmaker position of Triggerman summaries was replaced with alternate Triggerman. The phrase alternate Triggerman has been used in lieu of Playmaker within this Triggerman summary explanation to avoid confusion. I still think I confuse people with this because it's a little tricky to describe if you've never played Fast Break before, that there are still Playmaker cards within the player determination deck, but I did the best I could. Continuing on, the designated triggerman and alternate triggerman summaries broken down into each 6-minute increments are broken down into 6-minute increments of each quarter of play, with a reserve player in parentheses utilized if the designated triggerman or alternate triggerman is unavailable via foul trouble, injury, or because you as coach decided the designated player wasn't the right player during that juncture of the game. Fast break game players reference these triggerman summaries throughout the game every time a triggerman or alternate triggerman reading comes up on a player determination card. Triggerman summaries are an important component of fast break and are not just for statistical accuracy. For instance, designating Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as triggerman and Earvin Magic Johnson as alternate triggerman for long stretches of the first quarter and third quarters and during the closing minutes of the fourth quarter gives the 1979-80 Los Angeles Lakers a greater chance of consistently winning games rather than steering the ball to, say, Mark Landsberger and Jim Jones for extended periods of time. I don't know why I use that as an example, but it just hit me off the top of the head. Deneau noted that the triggerman summary determinations were no easy task. Mickey typically tinkered and tweaked the team triggerman minutes until he was satisfied with the results. Back in the 1970s and early 1980s, we did not have spreadsheets. Everything was with pencil and paper, Deneau said. If you look at Jim's team triggerman sheets, you would see many iterations of numbers in pencil with a line through and a new number next to it. There'd be many iterations of each number in this manner until he got to the final result possibilities, which were transferred onto a master sheet that was sent to the printer. All was manual paper, pencil and paper, done by hand. I had a quick comment on that. I tried to create the 68-69 ABA season of Fast Break last fall, and it turned out with a lot of fun, but trying to understand how to put those triggerman summary sheets, it was so difficult. I really was throwing my hands in the air half the time, and I made so many edits. It was unbelievable. Either way, it was a fun project, and I hope you have a chance to check out the PDF on my Facebook page with all those ABA teams of 68-69. Back to the story. Similar to two-way defensive cards, triggerman summaries are unique to Fast Break and the tabletop game industry. Games past and present like Stratomatic Pro Basketball, Hoops, Tabletop Pro Basketball, or even Status Pro Basketball have different player possession systems for top scorers and playmakers that differ in terms of when a designated scorer or playmaker gets the ball. But Mickey's system works great for Fast Break and its loyal gaming fans. It is still the top possession system for people, and I will say only Hoops has a masterful system, but of course Hoops Tabletop Pro Basketball has benefited from the age of computers, and they have a computer generated model that they can test with their system for ball possession, and it works incredibly. But even Mark Vasilio says that he got a lot of ideas from Fast Break, and he did not want to copy everything that Jim Mickey did, but he definitely got a lot of inspiration from Jim Mickey and his game. And he also got inspiration from Stratomatic as well. So his game is a little bit of a blend, but is much more like Fast Break than Stratomatic. The tip chart, the original plain brown box, included a pink chart that comes into play when a tip chart reading occurs on the rebounding or lower half of the player determination card. And we can show you that right there where it says tip chart. The two-sided 8.5 by 11 chart, initiated by a simple dice roll, is also packed with other goodies, including a rebounding missed free throws chart in addition to lesser-used charts for injuries, technical fouls, intentional fouls, rebounding block shots, and charts for random foul results, like the foul 2 with a question mark, and assist assignments on offensive cards. The tip chart adds variety and spice to Fast Break games, especially when playing head-to-head. Losing a key player to injury, even if it's for just 12 minutes of play, could make the difference between winning or losing a close game. A technical foul might account for just a point in the team's scoring column, but once again, this feature adds to the realism and of the professional basketball game. Mickey wanted to capture all facets of the NBA game. Deneau is a fan of the rebounding missed free throws portion of the tip chart. Nothing like rolling a 2 and having the offensive center tip in the rebound. You got to record an offensive rebound and a basket. Very fulfilling for you and demoralizing for the other team, just like in real life. Press cards. One of the advanced features in Fast Break is its press cards. During the 1970s and early 1980s, NBA coaches often employed high-pressure defensive tactics to force the opposing teams into turnovers, including steals, bad passes, other violations, in an effort to make a late-game comeback. The press was an important tool, especially during an era prior to the NBA's adaptation and use of the three-point shot that was unveiled during the 1979-80 season. Employing the use of his network of scouts from around the league. In addition to this, here's a picture of the press card for your perusal. Mickey employed his network of scouts for games watched on television. He rated every team for its ability to apply the press. Team press ratings ranged from poor to fair to average to above average to good to excellent, much like his defensive ratings. The greatest pressing teams were not always the best teams in the league. For instance, the New York Knicks had special instructions located at the bottom of each team's fast break card that worked in their favor, especially if the quick defender like Walt Frazier of the 75-76 New York Knicks says, press card rating good, with Frazier in the game, otherwise poor. By contrast, if a player in the game was not proficient at the art of the press, Mickey was quick to reduce that rating while the deficient player was in the game. This was true of the press-heavy Michael Ray Richardson and Ray Williams-led New York Knicks of 1981. Boy, I love that team. Press card rating poor if Mike Glenn in the game. Otherwise, excellent. And there was a lot of pressing going on during the 1970s and 80s. They don't do it as much today, and that's kind of a sad state of affairs for the game, but I'll get off my soapbox and get back to the story. A team press card rated below the excellent or good levels is more likely to incur defensive fouls in lieu of steals and have more press fails, resulting in easy fast break opportunities for non-pressing teams. Once again, the press feature is optional, but is another tool a coach may use, particularly when a team is running a deficit with limited time on the game clock. There were always smart managers in the draft league that would have two guards on their team that would give them a good or excellent press rating, and it would really make a difference at the end of the game when it was close. It was very disruptive when you had that rating, Deneau said. Here's the remainder of the box. The plain brown box was also fortified with two sets of dice. I still own them. Well, can't even see them. See them a little bit. They've yellowed quite a bit. Small green cardboard game markers and two manila colored game boards with slots for game cards and a built-in game clock. The game boards are reversible for both solitaire and two-player game play. Game markers are placed on the game boards to keep track of game time, team fouls, and game score. First quarter, the first edition of Fast Break by Mickey Games. This game includes the 73-74 NBA season. Jim Mickey's years of basketball game card and game engine experimentation had been transformed into reality. Fast Break by Mickey Games hit the marketplace during the fall of 1974. However, unlike board games sold nationally by Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers, most board games were not available in retail stores. The Stratomatic line of sports games and even Status Pro Basketball made by Avalon Hill eventually became available at niche game shops and within toy departments of select department stores. Mickey knew he had to advertise his wares. He put his limited advertising dollars into magazines like Street and Smith's Basketball and Basketball Digest, periodicals that appealed to hardcore sports fanatics who read and absorbed sports statistics as much as the magazine themselves. Here's just an example of a Street and Smith's article right there. Fast Break. It was over half the page, and this is actually the article that spurred me on to purchase the brochure for Fast Break Pro Basketball. It's actually cut off at the bottom, as you can see, because I actually tore out the little mail-in order form at 7778 Street in Smith. So that's how I became addicted to Fast Break Pro Basketball. Gaining national publicity and excitement about new professional basketball board game through corporate advertising was just the tip of the iceberg. It was going to take a number of specialists for card production, typesetting, printing of game parts, game assembly, and shipping for Mickey's first version of Fast Break to become a reality. Just as important, the development of Fast Break game cards was reliant on the release of the NBA's most recent and individual player statistics. Mickey didn't have time to wait for this 1975 edition of the NBA Guide with full 73-74 player and team statistics to come out in the fall. He needed the stats as soon as possible, and there was no physical or internet sources available at the time to facilitate this request. I contacted the NBA offices, Mickey said. I was leery they'd charge me for the player names. They never did. They said they would send me the NBA statistics, and they did. And that's what I made my calculations from. Mickey also needed a facility for game assembly. After weighing the costs and options, Mickey's basement turned out to be the place where he would eventually create the game cards and eventually print and assemble the games. That first year, we had a hard cable and an adding machine in my basement, Mickey said. I assembled the games with a bunch of friends of mine and my wife. Over time, Mickey expanded his staff, in addition to his wife Mary, who was already on board. 2 sons and 2 daughters eventually played roles in the assembly and shipping of Fast Break board games and season cards. As for shipping of the finished Fast Break product throughout the United States and Canada, the Mickeys established a rapport with the local UPS driver, who they soon knew on a first-name basis. Second quarter. How does Fast Break work? Fast Break gameplay is activated by the turning of player determination cards in conjunction with the implementation of a pair of 2 6-sided dice, 2d6. Similar to other tabletop sports games, the preparation for gameplay involves the placement of player cards on the game board, with playmaker, guard, forward, strong forward, and center positions matched up accordingly. In the case of Fast Break, a team's individual offensive cards are placed adjacent to the opposing team's individual defensive cards. For example, for a 1980-81 regular season game between the Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers, Boston's coach simply places its Larry Bird card in the forward slot on the board, while Philadelphia's coach matches him up with Julius Erving, adjacent to Bird on the board, but within the same defensive slot on the board. Or within the defensive slot on the board. 9 additional offensive-defensive card matchups occur on the game board prior to tip-off. And here you can see the player determination card with a forward and Larry Bird being matched up with Dr. J. That's Dr. Larry Bird's offensive rebound rating of 11 versus Julius's 12, so it's very easy to make that matchup when rebounds occur. Let's play a possession of Fast Break and say the Celtics already won the opening jump ball. The yellow player determination card pictured above left at the top of the deck is turned over, and the offensive position portion, or upper half of the card, says forward, and below it states P column, which is in reference to the pattern play offensive column for the Celtics on this possession. The game clock is moved 1 space from 12 minutes to 11 minutes 52 seconds, and the gameplay is in motion. First scenario. The Celtics forward on this possession is Bird. The Celtics coach proceeds to roll the dice. The dice result is an 11. The play result on the 11 on Bird's P column is a 3-point attempt, which denotes Bird will attempt a shot from beyond the 3-point line. This will require an additional dice roll and a reference to Bird's 3-point column, which is adjacent to his P column. Let's say the next roll on the dice come up with an 8. There's a blank space next to Bird's 3-point column on 8, which means Bird missed the shot. And another player determination card must be drawn for an attempted rebound. The player will not use the same card. Assuming the player determination within this example is also the next card drawn, a reference to the lower half of the card reveals a battle for the rebound between the offensive and defensive forward positions, and that the offensive player Bird receives the assistance of 1 die in an attempt to snare the offensive rebound for the Celtics. So if you look on the left there, the lower half of the card, offensive player receives 1 die. Bird is an 11, Irving's a 12. Bird's offensive rebounding at the upper right corner of his offensive card reveals he is an 11, while Irving's defensive rebound rating at the upper left corner of his defensive card has a 12. Therefore, Bird needs a die roll of at least 2 to surpass Irving's 12 to grab the offensive board. Let's say we roll a 4. Bird gets the offensive rebound because his aggregate number is 15, which is the original rebound rating of 11 plus an additional 4 from the die roll. The description below the rebound battle states, if the offensive forward rebounds, he is open to shoot, roll dice, use RG column, and move clock. Bird has now secured the offensive rebound and goes up for the putback. We move the game clock from 11:52 to 11:40. The next roll is a 6, which is a basket on Bird's RG column, 2 points for on the follow-up effort by Larry Bird. Okay, case number 2. If the roll on Bird's card had been a 5 or a 6 instead of an 8 on the 3-point attempt on his 3-point column from prior scenario, the shot would have been good, and you have to check for an assist on the play. This assist check is performed by looking at the assist rating toward the right center portion of the player determination card. The card in this example reveals a Playmaker 15 PM15 reading on the player determination card. All carded players are rated for assists per 48 minutes and have a range of numbers in the lower right corner of their offensive cards. For instance, Birds has an AST 1-7 rating on his offensive card. Hypothetically, if Bird were at the playmaker position on the game for the Celtics and a teammate had just scored the basket, Bird would not have qualified for an assist on the play because 7 is well below the 15 figure required for an assist on the play. Third scenario, running the fast break. As in scenario 1, let's say Bird missed the 3-pointer, but the next drawn player card for the rebound on the lower half of the card states defensive forward with FBO left lane in parentheses. This means the defensive forward Julius Irving has grabbed the rebound and a fast break has been initiated. Of course, as coach of the head-to-head or solitaire games, you may choose not to run the fast break, but that is not the popular choice among fast break gamers. In this case, we're running the fast break. The next step is a roll of the dice, and with no movement of the game clock. Looking at Philadelphia 76ers fast break card referring to LL or left lane column, let's say the roll is a 10, which is Irving's RG column. This means that Irving not only grabbed the defensive rebound, but is spearheading the fast break by utilizing the RG or run and gun column on his offensive card. The next roll, a 7, reveals a basket and foul. Let's take a look at the fast break card. You can see that Irving has on many of the lanes, he's got a forward RG on all 3 lanes. So Irving scores and is fouled on the RG column, a slam dunk for the doctor, and he's fouled on the play. The question mark on the foul refers to a random defensive foul on someone other than Irving's matchup defender, which is Bird in this scenario. A quick dice roll for fouls followed by a question mark on the tip chart assigns a defensive foul to a random Celtics player other than Bird. Irving steps to the charity stripe, and the next roll is a 6, referring to his free throw column on his offensive card. The G on 6 means the shot is good. Irving completes the 3-point play for the 76ers. And there's the defensive rebound, FBO left lane result. In all of these scenarios, play continues with the draw of the next player determination card and the movement of the game clock to the next space. Gameplay in Fast Break is that simple. The beauty of Fast Break is the flow of the game, Deneau said. You can actually visualize the game as you play. Jim had successfully captured within the game the magic of the players coming to life for you as a manager of your draft team or replaying an actual team's games. Playing time. The aforementioned yellow brochure says Fast Break can easily be played in an hour. It is possible to play a game in 40 minutes if you desire simple, rapid play. Naturally, the more detailed statistics you keep, the longer it will take to play the game. Also, adding all of the advanced features will slightly add to game length. For me, I think I've finished a few games under an hour, and that was keeping full statistics. But at the same time, I probably took a little longer than that because I like to experience the game and keep every stat. And I used to play a lot of head-to-head, and it would take a little bit longer than that as well because we just start chatting about the players, chatting about the amazing game Jim Mickey's Fast Break is. The most experienced Fast Break gamers keep full detailed statistics, and in that instance, a full game of Fast Break takes an hour and 15 minutes, depending on player substitution patterns and desired pace of play. I used to be much faster. I don't think I can hit. I had to be really playing a smooth game to get an hour and 15 in it, because I think I just enjoyed the game much more than as a kid, where I was just trying to like complete a team's season or something of that nature. Third quarter, maintaining a status quo. Following the original release of Fast Break by Mickey Games, 1974-75 edition, 73-74 game season and cards, Jim Mickey was pleased with the quality of his entry into the tabletop sports gaming genre, despite the lack of financial success during the first year of publication. "I got it done," Jim Mickey said. "The first season was very expensive. Financially, it looked like a setback. We were learning things for the first time, and every year there was the cost of advertising." While Jim Mickey performed the preparation of the individual and team Fast Break cards and statistical summaries by hand and had the assistance of close friends and family for game assembly and packaging, he still incurred expenses for typesetting and printing that cut into the company's profit margin. Within a few years, Jim Mickey purchased a printer and installed it in his basement. "The printer turned out to be a really good friend," Mickey said. Whether Mickey Games was netting a profit or was just breaking even, Fast Break published 11 seasons of complete games and player cards between 1974 and 1987. Each year, once the cards were printed, we would have collating parties where a bunch of our friends from draft leagues in Oregon, Illinois, Rochelle, Illinois would gather, order lots of pizza, and spend hours walking around tables in a circle collating the card sets, Denos said. It was exciting to see the new cards each year in this manner while helping Jim to get the game ready for shipment to customers. Cosmetic upgrades in card design and typeface or font were evident between the initial 1974 Fast Break offering and the bolder standard font used for the player and team Fast Break cards from 1977 through its final edition in 1987. "We examine the game each year and try to improve it as needed," Mickey said. Other updates introduced to the game included the modification of the original player determination cards by substituting alternate triggermen for Playmaker within the triggerman summaries in 1978. "It was 5 or 6 years before we were polished as a game product," Mickey said. "I think the success of the game became the flow of the game." Other notable improvements to Fast Break over time can be traced to the introduction of advanced features, including but not limited to the following items, including additional information on offensive and defensive cards. It was nice when you added the assist rating in year 2, pressure shooting rating, rest ratings, all that stuff right on the card. That was quite awesome. Hybrid lineup flexibility, including sets that said 3 guard offense, 3 forward offense, 1 guard offense. Marcus Johnson of 1983 also plays in the 3 guard offense and the 3 center offense or something like that. You can play all 3 positions. It's quite impressive. Then there's the height advantage disadvantage ratings. You don't want the short guys guarding the super tall guys. Does a 6'8" Magic Johnson versus 5'7" Spud Webb matchup work defensively for Webb? Probably not. And Mickey's height characteristics placed on the defensive cards allow Magic to take advantage of the situation if that matchup were to occur. Running frequency and press ratings. Some characteristics in the lower right corner of the offensive cards. They rate players for speed and fast break abilities, and they're definitely good for creating draft teams and team fast break cards as well, fantasy leagues and all that fun stuff. The fourth quarter, the final years. The efficiency of production peaked following the addition of a printer, the computer expertise of Denos, and a TRS-80 computer from Radio Shack, and other friends on the calculation side of the player and game cards. Jim did almost all the work, working tireless and countless hours during the summer to get the game produced, Denos said. Some of us would contribute various pieces, like myself and a close friend named Barry Landry. In the early years, we would do heavy number crunching with a pen, paper, and calculator, following the per minute 48 stats by hand. I created my own per 48 minutes sheets for 73-74 because they were not included in the first edition. I needed to know what these guys were doing per 48 minutes. Later during the 1980s, Jim and I worked on a computer to automate some of the core baseline charts, which would drive the eventual numbers to convert to the results for the cards to know continued. Once we had the baseline reports in place, it would then be a lot of back and forth by Jim to work out the numbers to be as accurate as possible. Even with the increase in efficiency, Mickey mentioned that a solid year financially for Mickey Games would be to break even on the balance sheet. I think he also mentioned that the most games they produced, I believe it was 450 or 500 games, which seems like a lot of games to put together, but I'm not sure if that was a correct amount. The game never made money, Deneau said. It was truly a labor of love. Jim was not good at marketing. If he had a partner back then and a bit of an investment, no telling how high it could have gone. Mickey gives significant credit to his wife, Mary Mickey, who made certain that all production, assembly, and shipping departments of Mickey Games were in top working order at all times. I remember cold calling Jim to get this story done, and Mary Mickey picked up the phone, and I was just shocked that a human being actually picked up a phone in this day and age. And I was very appreciative, and I got to speak to the great Jim Mickey. My wife was the heart of getting it done. She made sure we got things shipped out on time, Jim Mickey said. The financial struggles of Mickey Games were never evident in the quality of published Fast Break product, but by the frequency of season releases over the company's final 6 years. Following the publication of the 81-82 edition of Fast Break with the 81 season cards, Mickey ceased production prior to the 82-83 edition of the game. Jim Mickey and family announced the decision not to publish in 82 with a form letter on Fast Break stationery. Here's an excerpt. The decision saddens us greatly. After 8 years of putting our heart and soul into this love, it feels as if we lost one of our children, but circumstances beyond our control have made it impossible to produce Fast Break at this time. However, the letter left a glimmer of hope for Fast Break fans. It stated the Mickeys would consider publishing a game in 83 if circumstances allow. Well, Mickey Games went into production and publication again in 1983 and 1984, and Fast Break fans rejoiced. Oh, yes, we did. The game took another hiatus in 1985 before a final push for game publication put forth by the Mickey family was made in 1986. A Fast Break form letter, published in August of 1986, was sent to only a portion of the game's customer mailing list described as the Fast Break Faithful, and was utilized as a litmus test to see how committed fans of the game were to its continued publication. The request was to have the Fast Break Faithful purchase a minimum of 2 sets of player cards, or 2 complete games, or a combination of the two, to infuse Mickey Games with the necessary funds to publish a game in 1986. Well, the Fast Break Faithful came through, and Mickey Games produced the 1986-87 edition based on the 1985-86 season of cards. Included within that season of cards was Fast Break's only iteration of Michael Jordan, pictured at the right, the second-year pro who broke his foot just 3 games into the 1985-86 season and ended up playing in just 18 regular season games for the Chicago Bulls. However, during his short stint, Jordan scored nearly a point per minute, 22.7 points per 25.1 minutes per game, which translates to an astounding 43 points scored in 48 minutes. Most NBA fans recall that Jordan suited up for the final weeks of the 88 season and was in good health going into the playoffs. Jordan stunned the basketball world and eventual world champion Celtics with a record-setting 63 points in Game 2 of the opening round of the 1986 NBA playoffs. Needless to say, the Bulls-Celtics series was a must-replay for Fast Break Faithful. And I did replay that series recently. The 1985-86 Fast Break season cards, as always, were of top-notch quality, and game flow had not lost a step after the prior missed season of game cards. It was a swan song for Fast Break by Mickey Games following 11 memorable tabletop basketball seasons of publication. Overtime. Legacy of Fast Break. It's been 34 years. Now 36, almost, since Jim Mickey's crew stepped into the family basement to draw up 48-minute projections, calculate and produce game cards, print and ship Fast Break board games, and season cards to the faithful, young and old. Jim Mickey, 78, now 80, doesn't play tabletop sports. Games like he had prior to and during the heyday of Fast Break by Mickey Games from 1974 through 1987. Jim and Mary Mickey, married for 57 years, raised 4 children in Rochelle, Illinois, and all kids have college degrees, something to be very proud of. My 18-year-old son's headed off to college this fall at Oregon State University. Life has moved on. The game was an eventful and amazing chapter in Jim Mickey's life and a legacy that will never be forgotten by his close friends, family, and many tabletop basketball fans of his basketball creation. Today, Mickey reflects on his tabletop invention with pride and modesty. I thought it was a great game. Part of it is luck. You have to have luck so it works out. Double Overtime. Fast Break fans tell the story. Here are snippets of letters from fans from Fast Break's yellow brochure that, in a nutshell, summed up the overwhelmingly positive public opinion of their favorite tabletop NBA basketball game. These are the letters that sold me on the game as well, although the brochure pretty much told me how to play it without even owning the game. Quote, Fast Break is a creative achievement of the highest order. To blend with such detailed accuracy with playability, the real flow of basketball in a quick-paced game is an intellectual feat that I truly admire. RR, Vancouver, BC. I have enjoyed your Fast Break basketball game tremendously. It is the best basketball game I've ever played. It is by far superior to Appa and Stratomatic. And these are truths. Appa was a very low bar. The game is only statistically realistic, but is enjoyable to play. It is the first basketball game that I'm able to sit down and thoroughly enjoy playing. KJ of Los Angeles. Another one. I have played competitive basketball and I find myself getting caught up in the flow of the game, becoming more of a fan than a coach. Oh yeah, that's the way it is. Flash forward to present day, and you'll find opinions that haven't changed much. Now, these are people that I've just met since 2019 upon formation of my tabletop basketball games group, and these people many of them are game creators. Quote, what impressed me most was how Fast Break duplicates pace and variations in pace among teams. That's the most important thing I want from a basketball game, and it may be the most difficult thing to do. And I really like the individual defensive cards and a tiny thing, like the specific description of turnovers. J.G. Preston in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I like the combination of player determination cards, or FACs, plus dice, the player cards, and the attention to their ratings, which gives them personality, the extreme ease of play, which amazingly captures the flow of the sport while at the same time giving a very realistic portrait of the teams and players. That's Michel Montagnier of Varese, Italy. Michel had also made a computerized DOS version of all the championship teams of Fast Break. He's one of the hugest Fast Break fans I've ever known, has provided me with a lot of background information of the game, some things I never even knew existed. Current tabletop game creators are also inspired by Jim Mickey's masterpiece. I think Fast Break was years ahead of when it was first published. The use of FACs together with dice was the first thing that intrigued me. Not sure if the idea of fast action cards to drive the game came from Status Pro or was the invention of Mr. Mickey. Anyway, linking dice and FACs was a great idea. Secondly, the separated defensive cards allow for multiple matchups, something very realistic. And last but not least, the assist determination coming directly from player card was absolutely genius, which I totally agree with Marco Walter, who makes regular season basketball. He's also from Italy. I grew up playing Fast Break, and the game was by far my favorite of all board games. I still enjoy the game and still appreciate the work that Jim Mickey and his crew put into each season. I probably have somewhat unique insight into this regard. After Fast Break was discontinued, I played Stratomatic, but it never provided me the same level of enjoyment, and I will second that statement to a T. I played virtually a couple of games of Stratomatic and said, what is this game? And it's not a terrible game. It just is far more complex and convoluted than Fast Break. And that's not just an opinion, that's a fact. In my opinion, to be a great board sports sim, the game must be accurate and possess a realistic flow, but be simple, fun, and smooth in application. Fast Break met these criteria and set the standard for all basketball board games. After nearly 40 years and several excellent designs, I'm not sure any game does it better. Fast Break was undoubtedly had an influence on our hoops game. We would have liked to have more similarities but resisted the temptation out of respect. That's Mark Vasilio of Hoops Tabletop Pro Basketball, Shady Spring, West Virginia. And he's a tremendous guy and a tremendous creator of basketball games. He loved Fast Break. Still does. The mention of Fast Break by Mickey Games brings warmth to my heart. This is a personal reflection. It was the first and best tabletop basketball association I ever experienced. Fast Break gameplay was a daily, solo, or head-to-head occurrence with friends and family during my teen years. I'm taking a trip to Seattle next week, and I will be playing a game of Fast Break from the 79-80 season with those special player determination cards. I coached my hometown Portland Trail Blazers of 1976-77 for a full season. I loved every minute of it. My stats are so accurate in that game. I've never had a more accurate replay than 76-77. I also attempted to reinvent the atom by creating my own Fast Break season player cards with limited success. Well, I created 60-61 prior to this article, and I've created 68-69 ABA since this article, and I think I'm getting a few things right, but I'm sure there's plenty of things I'm not even touching on. Life events, college, career, family drew me away from Fast Break for 30 years. In 2019, I renewed my love for tabletop sports, and Fast Break returned with it. I never got rid of my cards. Never, ever. Jim Mickey created a card and dice activate game with tremendous flow, unlike any other in the sports simulation genre. It was my honor to speak with Jim for this article. He remains a kind man who entertained and inspired kids like me with his masterpiece. So that concludes the article, A Game I'll Never Forget, a tribute to Jim Mickey's Fast Break. Jim Mickey, happy 80th birthday. I hope you're spending time with friends and family, and just hope you have many more years of greatness. I really, really appreciate your game, and your family's always been very nice to me as well. So anyway, have a good day, everyone. And this is Rod's Tabletop Hoops signing out.